Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Syairah. Today me Muhammad Azad Rosli and my group members, which is Muhammad Musaikal, Ahmad Mamzi, Muhammad Amirul Syafiq, Muhammad Najwan and Muhammad Daiful Faid, will present our group assignment. Okay, first for introduction, the importance of financial ratios for financial managers. Financial ratios are tools used to assess the relative strength of companies by performing simple calculation on items on income statements, balance sheet and cash flow statement. Ratio measure companies' operational efficiency, liquidity, stability and profitability, giving financial managers more relevant information than raw financial data. So the first one is analysis of financial statements. Interpretation of the financial statements and data is essential for the firm's internal and external stakeholders. With the help of ratio analysis, financial managers can interpret the number from the balance sheet and income statements. Every stakeholder has different interests when it's come to financial result. Equity investors are more interested in the growth of the dividend payments and the earnings powers of the organization in the long run. Creditors would like to ensure that they get their repayments on their dues on time. Number 2 is helps in understanding the profitability of the company. Profitability ratios help to determine how profitable a firm is. Return on assets and return on equity helps to understand the ability of the firm to generate earnings. Return on asset is the total net income divided by total assets. It's mean how much a company earns a profit for every dollar of its purchases. Return on equity is net income by shareholders' equity. This ratio tells us how well a company use its investor money. Ratio like the gross profit and net profit margin. Margins helps to analyze the firm's ability to translate sale to profit. And number 3 is planning and performance. Ratio can provide guidance to financial managers when creating business plans or preparing presentation for lenders and investors. Using industry trends as a baseline, financial managers can set time-bound performance goals in terms on specific ratios to give investor a glimpse into the potential of the new company. Ratio can also serve as an impetus for strategic change within an organization, providing management with relevant guidance and feedback as ratio valuation shift in response to organizational changes. Ratio keep managers on their toes by revealing financial weakness and opportunities. And the last one is a standardized method of comparison. Financial ratios provide a standardized method with which to compare companies and industries. Using ratios puts all companies on a relatively equal playing field in the eyes of analysis. Companies are judged on their performance rather than their size, sales volume or market share. Comparing the raw financial data of two companies in the same industry offers only limited insight. Ratios go beyond the numbers to reveal how good a company is at making a profit, funding the business, growing through sales rather than debt, and wide range of other factors. An older company, for example, might boast 50 times the revenue of a new small business, which will make the older company seem stronger at first glance. Analyzing the two companies with ratios such as return on equity (ROE), return on assets (ROA), and net profit margin may reveal that the smaller company operates much more efficiently, generating substantially more profit per dollar of asset employed.
The first one, I will start with current ratio. We choose 2021 because 2021 have the higher liquidity, which is 1.32 times. It will be easier for the company to pay its creditor on time and vice versa. A lower current ratio indicates that a company is more vulnerable to high risk distress. A good current ratio is typically between 1.5 and 2, but this can vary depending on the industry in which your company operates. A current ratio indicates whether a company has enough cash flow to pay its immediate debt and liability if necessary. 2021 is a good year for La Flora Berhad to pay their creditor on time because a higher ratio is preferable to a low ratio. There are a few recommendations to improve the current ratio. For the first one is delaying any capital purchase that would require any cash payment. For the second one is selling any capital asset that are not generating a return to the business. For the second one is quick ratio. We choose 2020 compared to 2021 because 2020 has higher time, which is 0.97. The higher ratio shown that a firm has enough current asset to cover its current liability without selling inventory. Our group chose 2020 because the quick ratio is higher than 2021, which is 0.96, and it will make La Flora Berhad able to pay its current liability on time without liquidating inventory. For the third one is inventory turnover ratio. This ratio indicates how frequently inventory is sold and replaced each year. Naturally, the higher the ratio, the faster the inventory is sold. It is also stated that the company does not have an issue with overstocking. A low turnover rate indicates poor sale and as a result excess inventory. As a result, higher is preferable to low. Between 2020 and 2021 for this inventory turnover, 2021 is poor inventory turnover, which is 3.29% because of holding too much inventory, which is overstocking. While 2020 have high inventory turnover ratio, which is 6.71%. 2020 is better than 2021 because 2020 have the higher ratio than 2021. Recommendation to improve inventory turnover. For the first one is need to evaluate the effective present inventory control system. For the second one is inventory clearance sale, that is by selling this good at reduced price. For the next one is average collection period. The average collection period is the average number of days it takes a business to collect and convert its account receivable into cash. It is one of 6 main calculations used to determine short-term liquidity. That is the ability of a company to pay its bill as they come due. If the average is low, it's good. You collect account relatively quickly. If the number is on the high side, you could be having trouble collecting your account. A high average collection period ratio could indicate trouble with your cash flow. So average collection period 2020, which is 89.44 days, is better than 2021, which is 136.14 day because the number of day taken is shorter. A few recommendations to improve collection period is, the first one is adopt a tighter collection policy.
Okay, for the next one is non-current asset turnover. This ratio measures the firm's efficiency in utilizing its property, plant and equipment in generating sales. From the above figure, we can conclude that the firm is utilizing its asset more efficiently in 2020, which is 6.04 times. So, non-current asset turnover is 2020 is better than 2021, which is 3.83, because it implies that La Flora Berhad is efficient in generating sales or revenues from its asset base. A lower ratio in 2021 indicates that La Flora Berhad is not using its assets efficiently and may have internal problems. Recommendation to improve non-current asset turnover: improving inventory management, selling assets. Next one is total asset turnover. The higher the asset turnover ratio, the better company is performing. Since higher ratio imply that the company is generating more revenue per dollar of assets, the assets turnover ratio tends to be higher for companies in certain sectors than in others. So the total assets turnover in 2020, which is 1.59 times, is better and more effective than 2021, which is 0.98, because total assets turnover is 2020 is higher than 2021. La Flora Berhad more perform in 2020 compared to 2021 because the higher of asset turnover ratio. Recommendation to improve total asset turnover: first is leasing instead of buying assets and increase production. Then for the next one is debt ratio. Debt ratio is a metric that measures company total debt as a percentage of its total assets. A higher debt ratio indicates that a company is highly leveraged and may have borrowed more money than it can easily pay back. A low ratio means a lower risk of loan default. So, debt ratio in 2021, which is 56.39%, is better and more effective than 2020, which is 59.92%, because debt ratio in 2021 is lower than 2020. Lower is healthy and higher is considered a warning sign. Recommendation to improve debt ratio: first is have an optimum mixture of sources of financing. The next one is not take additional debt financing.
So the next one is debt to equity ratio. A business debt to equity ratio or DE ratio is a measure of the extent to which a company can cover its debt. It is calculated by dividing a company's total debt by its total shareholders' equity. The higher the DE ratio, the most difficult it may be for the business to cover all of its liabilities. As its signer, company's debt is quite high compared to the company asset. Based on the calculation above, we can see that in 2020 and 2021, La Flora Berhad used less equity and more borrowing as the source of financing. Not only in 2020, we can see LA Flora Berhad debt to equity ratio is higher only, which is 1.5% that 2021 LA Flora Berhad debt to equity ratio, which is 1.3%. In conclusion, debt to equity ratio for La Flora Berhad in 2021 show that is less difficult to cover all of its liabilities compared to 2020, because the total debt to equity ratio in 2021 has decreased compared to 2020. So the recommendation Number one is lowering the amount of borrowing. Second one, the next one is time interest earned. Time interest earned measure that firm ability to cover its interest charged out of its operating profit. The higher the ratio, the higher is the firm ability to fulfill interest obligation. Failure to meet this obligation might expose the firm to the risk of bankruptcy, as the creditors can take legal action against the firm. Based on calculation above, we can see that in 2020, LR Flora Berhad time interest earned ratio is 10 times, while in 2021, the time interest earned ratio has decreased to 5.15 times. This indicate that in 2020, La Flora Berhad has high time interest earned, which is company likely has a lower probability of defaulting on its loan, making it a safer investment opportunity for debt providers. While as for 2021, La Flora Berhad time interest earned has decreased from 10 times to 5.15, which indicate that a company has a higher chance of defaulting as it has less money available to dedicate to debt repayment. Recommendation is the firm should not take additional debt financing if it is already too highly leveraged. The next one is gross profit margin. The gross profit margin show the percentage of sale remaining after deducing the cost of making such sale. Is one of three major profitability ratio, the others being operating profit margin and net profit margin. Arguably, it the most important of three profitability measure, because without a high enough gross profit margin, you won't have a viable business, at least not for long. Based on the calculation above, we can see that the La Flora Berhad gross profit margin ratio in 2020 is 39.72%, while La Flora Berhad gross profit margin ratio in 2021 is 35.61%. This indicate that gross profit margin ratio in 2021 is lower compared to 2020. Low gross profit margin in 2021 may be due to insufficient sales volume or highest cost of goods sold, while high gross profit margin in 2020 may because of its efficiency of the company in controlling its cost of goods sold. Recommendation is a firm may need to review its pricing policy. Operation profit margin. Operation profit is derived after deducting all costs and expenses, including interest charge and tax from the sale figure. This is the true profit made from the operation of the company. The higher the operating profit margin, the higher is profitability of the company. Based on the calculation above, La Flora Berhad operating profit margin ratio in 2020 is 15.18%, which is a higher compared to La Flora Berhad operating profit margin in 2021, which is 11.63%. This indicates there was a decrease from 2020 to 2021. The lower operating profit margin for La Flora Berhad in 2021 is lower could arise because of lower gross profit margin. Recommendation is number one, reduce cost of sale and operating expenses depending on the firm situation. The second one is the firm may also need to review the selling price.
Alright, so continue. Next is net profit margin. So generally, this ratio is not useful for company making losses because they do not have profit. This ratio also indicate the pricing strategy adopted by the firm. So based on the calculation above, we can see that the net profit margin for La Flora Berhad in 2020 is 10.25%, which is higher than net profit margin in 2021, which is 7.03%. So this indicates there was a decrease in net profit margin from 2020 to 2021, which may be due to because during 2021 there was a high operating expenses compared to 2020. So the recommendation is by raising the sales price. The second one is by lowering the requirement for paying larger interest fee. So the next one is return on asset. Return on asset or ROA is known as return on investment, ROI. So it indicates the management ability to make profit from the firm investment in asset. The higher the ratio, the better. This is due to the fact that a higher ratio will show that the company is more capable of generating capital efficient earning in relation to its asset base. Based on the calculation above, we can see that the La Flora Berhad return on asset ratio in 2020 is 60.32%, while in 2021 the ratio is 6.9%. So this indicate there was a decrease in return on asset ratio from 2020 to 2021, and it's not good for the company. So the recommendation is use asset more effectively to generate higher profit. So finally, the next one is return on equity. So return in equity, ROE, measure the profit earned by the common stockholder from the investment in the company. So the higher the return on equity, the better the return for the shareholder. Generally, high growth firm will have the higher ROE. So based on the calculation, the return on equity ratio for La Flora Berhad on 2020 is 40.71%, which is higher compared to 2021, which is 15.83%. This indicate a bad return for the shareholder on 2021 because of lower return on equity. So the recommendation is to improve your performance to keep up sale, and the second one is through boosting revenue. Okay, so I will give Najwan to present the conclusion.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Najwan. Today, I'm going to talk about the 5 reasons that the financial officer do not approve the loan that the La Flora Berhad request. First reason why financial officer does not approve, because the team not having done their due diligence in research the best rate and loan term offered by the different lender because of COVID-19 pandemic. Second reason, the financial officer does not approve because the company cannot afford to take the loan based on the current financial standing. Next, the reason why cannot take loan because the company is in too much debt already and need to focus on paying that down before taking out any. Then the reason why company cannot take loan are economic concern, because the economy in Malaysia is still not stable after pandemic, and most of the trading market are going drop. For example, La Flora Berhad, the company cannot survive at the pandemic. Lastly, insufficient operating history, because the La Flora Berhad has been operating for a while after the pandemic, but has sustained a certain amount of success and credibility. For example, the La Flora Berhad has statement that decreased from 2020 to 2021. Okay, that's all for my team, and thank you.